Hello viewers, welcome to Kids Auto and Truck Repair. Today we have a 2014 Audi Q7. We're going to figure out what the engine size is. This is a gas engine. The customer complaint on this vehicle is the check engine light remains on the dash while the engine is running. The owner of this vehicle is one of our subscribers here on our YouTube channel. His name is Kiza. So Kiza, thank you very much for bringing business to us. Now, you guys might wonder what I'm holding here. So this vehicle came from the Audi dealership. The owner of this vehicle lives in Virginia, so he drove about 2 hours to come to our shop. And he told me that he took the vehicle to the dealership when the check engine light first came on the dash. They told him that the O2 sensors were defective. So they replaced the O2 sensors. And then when he picked up the vehicle, he drove the vehicle for about 5 miles. Then the check engine light came back. When the check engine light came back on, he took it back to the Audi dealership. Then the dealership told him, the service writer at the dealership told him that they checked the vehicle and the vehicle needed an ECM. So they replaced the ECM. After replacing the ECM, the vehicle was fixed. They called him, they said that your vehicle is fine, come pick it up. He went and picked it up. He drove the vehicle for a day, and then the check engine light came back on. So he was very frustrated at that time. He took the vehicle back to the Audi dealership. They looked at it. They told him that we replaced the ECM, we replaced the O2 sensors, but the issue might be in the wiring. So we need more diagnosis time to figure out why the check engine light is coming back on. And he asked them, he said, you guys did the diagnosis. How come you couldn't tell if the issue is the wiring or the ECM? I already spent money to replace the ECM. You replaced the O2 sensors. The vehicle is still not fixed. So they were about to charge him another $800 to do that. Now, he already had spent over $4,000 when they replaced the ECM and the O2 sensors. So at that point, he was very frustrated. He couldn't take it anymore. He said, I need to look at a different alternative. So he started doing some research. He came across one of our videos online. He reached out. He told me what was going on. He scheduled an appointment, and here we are. He brought me all the paperwork. He said, Dio, I wish I had found you before because I wouldn't have taken my vehicle to the Audi dealership. So I have the paperwork here. I'm going to show this to you. I taped the name of the dealership and the name of the customer and the customer's info. So we're going to go through this paperwork and then we're going to go on the vehicle so we can confirm the customer's complaint. So if cameraman Matt can come here and show you guys this. So this is the inspection that they did. And then right here, as you can see, can you see this very well? So dealer, now you guys can pause this and read what they're saying over here. Okay, so it says check engine light came on first, then ESPS and traction control check. So this is how much he spent. So they say more diag after replacing ECM and ECM 60-pin connector housing. So it looks like they also replaced the connector housing. And then there's more. So I read this off camera. So once again, you guys can pause this and read all this stuff over here. Yeah, so a bunch of stuff were done to this. So here's the total. This is how much the customer spent. $4,794.52. So $4,794. Okay. So after spending all this money, the vehicle is still not fixed. So he told me, Dio, you are my last hope. If you can't fix it, I don't know who else can. So that's a lot of pressure on us. So let's see, fingers crossed. Are we going to fix it? Cameraman Matt, what do you think? You think we can fix it? Okay, by the way, we have cameraman Matt behind the camera. These guys don't want to show their faces on camera. And Matt, you better not cut this part, okay? Leave this on in the video. We have cameraman Matt and cameraman Dom here. I wanted them to say hello to you guys, but they don't want to show their faces. Anyways, let's go in the vehicle so we can confirm the complaint. So now let's start the engine. So as you can hear, the engine is running and the check engine light remains on the dash. So customer's complaint confirmed. All right, since we have confirmed the customer's complaint, I'm gonna turn off the engine. I'm gonna turn the key on. We're gonna bring up our scan tool. Let's see what we got. We're gonna do a full scan. Let's scan all the control units on the vehicle. So this is an Audi. It's a 2014, I believe. Q7 S line. I believe this is a Q7 S line. What kind of engine is this? It's not TDI. It's the first one. Right there, the scan tool has identified the vehicle. This vehicle has 115,000 miles, 891. So let's do a code scan and see what we got. So we have two trouble codes in the engine computer. So oxygen sensor bank 2 sensor 2, no activity, P0160, no signal / no communication. And then the second code is 01056, catalyst system bank 1, efficiency below threshold, P0420, lower limit reached. Interesting. So we have a code for bank 1 sensor 2, so O2 sensor code, and then bank 1 catalytic converter. This could be caused by a defective catalytic converter, or we could have a sensor issue, especially the sensor after the cat. If we have a bad O2 sensor after the catalytic converter, it's going to send a skewed signal to the engine computer, and the engine computer might think like there's a bad cat while the issue is the sensor. So we need to look at the data to figure that out. I mean, I don't know why they changed the ECM. So maybe the ECM needed to be changed, and then the catalytic converter codes is probably the byproduct of whatever that was happening in the past or whatever issues that this vehicle had. So let's scroll down and see what else we have. Now, the customer wants us to fix what's causing the check engine light to remain on the dash. We have 3 codes in the ABS control unit. I'm going to let the customer know about these codes. But for now, let's focus on the codes that we have in the engine computer. So on the generic side of the tool, we only have one code, P0160, O2 sensor circuit, no activity detected, bank 2 sensor 2. So I wonder if it's this bank 2 sensor 2 code that's causing the other code to be set. So we're going to look at O2 sensor data and see what we find. So let's go into the engine computer. Now, these codes are pretty self-explanatory and pretty straightforward. So let's look at the codes once again. Okay, we got O2 sensor codes, bank 2 sensor 2. So we got P0160 and P0420. So classic catalytic converter code. So let's go to data menu. Let's go to PID list. We might have to look at these codes from the generic side because that might be the data. Looking at the data from the generic side might be a lot easier to see or understand, in my opinion. So we got some misfire counters here. I need O2 sensor data. Nothing here. Let's back out. Data groups. No oxygen sensor data group. That's odd. Let's go to lambda control. So O2 sensor 1 learned value. Oxygen sensor 2 voltage. So bank 2. Okay, so here we're gonna customize this list. Let's deselect all these data PIDs. Let's grab, so O2 sensor bank 1 sensor 1, bank 2 sensor 1. I'm just gonna look at my voltage data PIDs. Bank 2 sensor 2 and bank 1 sensor 2. Okay, so we're gonna look at the catalytic converter before the CAT and after the CAT on both banks. So let's list these. We have the same values on all of them. Let me graph all these O2 sensors. Okay, so bank 1 sensor 1 right now, key on, engine off, is showing us a value of 1.48 volt. And then bank 2 sensor 1 is showing us the same value. And then bank 1 sensor 2 is showing us 0.45 volt. And then same thing on bank 2. So that's good. Let's start the engine. So the engine is running. Let's see. We got nothing on the graph. That's odd. We got no movement from these O2 sensor graphs. That's weird. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the engine. Let's turn the key on. Let's look at the O2 sensor data PIDs from the generic side of the tool. So let's stop the communication here. Let's go to OBDII direct. Okay, so let's look at the codes again. This time we are on the generic side of the tool. So O2 sensor circuit, no activity detected, bank 1 sensor 2, okay? We read that, so let's look at some data PIDs. Actually, let's see if we have freeze frame data available here. Okay, so we do. So this P0160 trouble code was set when the engine speed was 700. So technically, idle speed, the engine was in closed loop. Long-term fuel trim bank 1 was 17.2%. Long-term fuel trim bank 2 was 19.5%. Wow. And then short-term fuel trim bank 1 was minus 4.5%. Short-term fuel trim bank 2 was minus 3%. Vehicle speed was 0, so the vehicle was stationary. And then fuel rail pressure was 520.5 psi. And then engine temperature was 185 degrees. So this code was set at operating temperature. The vehicle was idling, and then the code set. So that is good to know. Now let's look at some data PIDs. Because the customer told me I spent too much money to have the check engine light stay on the dash. I don't want to see the check engine light on. So we got to do what we got to do to get rid of the check engine light. So we're going to deselect all these data PIDs. We're going to grab our engine speed. We're going to grab our trim system, our fuel system data PID. I'm going to grab my Mars airflow sensor data PID. We're going to grab our O2 sensor data PIDs. So that's what we're going to focus on. So O2 sensor bank 1, sensor 2, O2 sensor bank 2, sensor 2, and then O2 sensor current bank 2, sensor 1, O2 sensor current bank 1, sensor 1. Okay, so that's it. I'm also going to look at my fuel rail data PIDs, fuel rail pressure data PID. Let's also grab our short-term and long-term fuel trim data PIDs. Okay, that should be it. Let's grab engine speed and engine temperature data PID. Okay, so since we had a code about the second O2 sensor on bank 2, so I'm gonna graph O2 sensor, so bank 2 sensor 2, and then let's graph bank 1 sensor 2 as well. So these two sensors should pretty much have the same signal, okay? The data, the graphs should look the same on both of these O2 sensors. So now let's start the engine and see what we got. So engine is running. We're still in closed. I mean, we are in open loop. So we are still in open loop. Okay, so we see a change over here on the second O2 sensor on bank 2, but bank 1, nothing. This thing is still stuck in open loop. That's odd. Okay, so I'm going to, we might have to take this on a test drive because, I mean, these O2 sensors should have heaters in them and they should reach operating temperature pretty fast. So I'm gonna adjust the scale on this thing. Let's set up our min and max. We're gonna get it out of auto scale. So our minimum is gonna be 0.1, and then our maximum will be 1 volt. Okay, same over here. Minimum will be 0.1, the maximum will be 1 volt. Okay, no change at all. We're still stuck in open loop. That's odd. That's really odd. Very odd. Okay, I'm gonna take this for a spin. Let's go on a test drive. We're gonna leave our scan tool connected. I'm gonna keep watching the second O2 sensors. Let's go on a test drive and see what happens. Closed loop fault. So we went, are you still filming me? Yeah, keep filming, Matt. So we went into closed loop. On bank 1, it says closed loop, but bank 2, it says closed loop fault. That's probably because there's something going on with the second O2 sensor on bank 2. So we need to figure out if it's a sensor issue or maybe a wiring issue. But let's go on a test drive first and see what happened. As I'm driving, I'm watching our second O2 sensor data PID. So I'm comparing it to the one on bank 1. They both kind of look the same. There isn't a big difference between the two. Okay, I'm also gonna graph the first O2 sensors as well. let's see. Why is this thing beeping? Oh, it's beeping for your seatbelt. That's fine. Okay, so bank 1 sensor 2 is switching between 0.6. Oops, someone is texting me. But bank 2 sensor 2 is stuck at 0.4 volt. Yeah, so something is wrong. Yeah, I mean, now I can clearly see it. You guys will see this when Matt put this on the screen. Yeah, so bank 2 sensor 2 basically has a flat line. It's stuck at 0.470 volt. It's moving it's barely moving. It's going between, yeah. So cameraman Matt is gonna have to put his seatbelt on. Yeah, we clearly have a problem here. Okay. Now, I don't think this is a catalytic converter issue. I believe it's a sensor issue, because even if we had a bad cat, the voltage coming out of this sensor would have changed a little bit. So now what I want to do is I'm going to turn around here. We're going to drive back to the shop and figure out where bank 2 is. And then we're going to look at the sensor after the catalytic converter on bank 2. We're going to check the wiring of it. I believe this is a regular narrow band O2 sensor. So it's probably going to have 4 wires. 2 wires will be for the sensor heater. And then the other 2 wires will be the sensor ground and sensor signal. Yeah, so as you can see right now, there's a huge difference over here between the O2 sensor after the cat on bank 1 and the O2 sensor after the cat on bank 2. Yeah, so the sensor after the cat on bank 1 right now is showing us a value of it's going between 0.0 and 0.1. Now it's at 0.8. Now, the second O2 sensor on bank 1, I don't like how it's oscillating up and down like that. These catalytic converters could be bad also. We might have to check them with a thermometer once we get to the shop. Okay, we could have bad cats, but I don't like how the graph of the second O2 sensor on bank 2 is stuck at 0.4 millivolt. 0.4 volt. Yeah, so let's go back to the shop. Let's check the second O2 sensor on bank 2 wiring. Let's check that wiring, and then we're gonna check the catalytic converters too. So we're almost back at the shop. I'm gonna drive the vehicle in the shop. We might have to put this vehicle on the lift so we can get access to the catalytic converters easily. Yeah, as you can see, there's a huge difference over here. Okay, so O2 sensor 2 on bank 2 is got a problem. So we have to figure out if it's the wiring or the sensor. All right, we are back in the shop. I got the vehicle on the lift. So now we need to figure out where bank 2 sensor 2 is, because that's the one that's not working. So let's grab our shop light here, our hood light. All right, so it looks like we have aftermarket O2, well, no, they're not, I don't know. the O2 sensors might be OEM, but the catalytic converters look aftermarket. Let me grab my light. So over here, Matt, I hope you can see this. So these are our catalytic converters. So I believe this is bank 1 and the second one is bank 2. Actually, locating these catalytic converters and the O2 sensors is pretty easy. So our O2 sensors look new. So we have 1, 2, and then there's a third one over there. There's a fourth one back there. So now I'm gonna grab my thermometer. Let's check our catalytic converters first. So I did have a thermometer here. So here it is. Now this test is not 100% accurate, but it works. Okay, this can give us a pretty good indication of how the catalytic converter is running. So what I'm gonna do is, Matt, if you can come over here, we're gonna check this first catalytic converter first. I'm gonna take the temperature of the inlet of this catalytic converter. We have about, hold on, it moved. Right there. We have about 395 degrees Fahrenheit. So now I'm gonna measure the temperature of the outlet of this one. So on this one, the outlet temperature is 449.9, about 100 degrees difference between the inlet and the outlet. So that's good. So now we're gonna check the second one. So the inlet of this one is measuring, let me make sure I'm getting it. Actually, the inlet of this one is a lot cooler. That's odd. 218.1 degrees. And then we're gonna measure the temperature of the outlet of that one. I believe this one is bank 2. Oh, check this out. So the outlet temperature of the second catalytic converter is 228.3 degrees. So as you can see, there isn't a big temperature difference between the inlet and the outlet. So that's an indication of a defective catalytic converter. Knowing that these catalytic converters are aftermarket, they look aftermarket. When it comes to German vehicles, I don't like installing aftermarket parts in general, whether it's mechanical parts or electronic and electrical parts. So I'm gonna recommend replacing these cats. And remember, we had a PO 420 in the engine computer. So these cats need to be replaced. So now what we have to do is, let's check the wiring of the sensor. Okay, so this is gonna be bank 1. This is the catalytic converter for bank 1. And then that one over there is gonna be the cat for bank 2. So as I'm looking back here, it looks like I'm trying to find the wire of that sensor over there. Let me see if I can reach it. Yeah, it's this one. So this is the wire for it. So this over here is the wiring of the second O2 sensor on that catalytic converter. So I'm gonna grab, let's go to our service info and look up the position of these catalytic converters. So this is a 2014 Audi Q7. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the engine. We don't have to keep the engine running. So at this point, I am going to, actually, before I turn off the engine, let me get to, we're just gonna check, we're gonna check these O2 sensors, okay? While we're here, so we're gonna pop this out, okay? So this is, oh, what is that? It looks like Man, it looks like someone ran a wire